Hey student, here I am again with the second part of the explanation of the chapter tissue. So in the first part I discussed up to stomata. So let us continue our explanation from there. So today I'm going to start with transpiration. So what is transpiration? It is the process of the loss of water from the aerial part of the plant in the form of water vapor. That is, when the plant loses water from the aerial part of the plant. Aerial part means the part which is in contact with air. When the plant loses water in the form of water vapor during the daytime from the aerial part of the plant, then we call that process as respiration. So you can just find it in the explanation here. The plant cell, when sometime have extra water, they lose it in the form of water, evaporate through stomata. This process is called transpiration. So what is the role of transpiration in plant? First of all, it helps in exchange of gases. Transpiration helps the plant in exchange of gases. Second one, it prevents the plant from overheating. That means when there will be water loss, then that water loss, in that process of water loss, what happens? The water which is in liquid form, it will convert into water vapor. So in that process, in one way or the other way, evaporation is involved. So where there is evaporation, then there is cooling. So thus, through that process, it prevents the plant from overheating. Third one, the movement of water in plant. Since the plant will lose water in the form of water vapor, then what will happen? The percentage of water inside the plant body will reduce. As a result, what will happen? Water movement, or the plant will create a suction, due to which water will enter into the plant body. Then the next one is complex permanent tissue. So after transpiration, we are going to start the complex permanent tissue. In the first part, we have already discussed about the simple permanent tissues. Now we are going to start this complex permanent tissue. So complex permanent tissues comprise of different kinds of cells. These different types of cells coordinate with each other and perform a common function in these tissues. So what are these complex permanent tissue? That means these complex permanent tissues are composed of more than one kind, means more than one kind of cells. Okay, so this complex permanent tissue, they consist of different kinds of cells. These different types of cells coordinate with each other, that is, work with each other to perform a common function in this tissue. So there are two types of complex permanent tissue. First one is xylem and second one is phloem. So xylem is made up of dead cells having a thick cell lining. It consists of the following element. So xylem is made up of dead cells. It has a thick cell lining. It consists of the following. Number one is trachea and vessels. So trachea and vessel, let us see what this trachea, what the explanation of this trachea and vessel is. They have broad tubular structure so that we can allow transportation of food and water in the plant vertically. So this trachea and vessels, what it does, it helps in the transport of food and water in the plants in vertical direction. Next one is xylem parenchyma. What is the work of the xylem parenchyma? It stores food and help in transportation of water horizontally in the plant. Third one is xylem fibers. What is the work of the xylem fibers? They support transportation. Xylem fibers helps in supporting transportation. Then the next one is phloem. So phloem, it is made up of living cells. It is not like xylem. Xylem is made mostly of the dead cells, but phloem is made up of living cells and allow the movement of food from leaves to other parts of the plant. It has the following element. What are the constituents of the phloem? First one is sieve tube. The sieve tube is broad-shaped cell with porous wall. Porous wall means perforated walls. Next one is companion cells. They facilitate the function of the sieve tube. Means they help the sieve tubes in functioning. Then the next comes phloem fiber. They provide flexibility to the phloem. What is the work of the phloem fiber? The work of the phloem fiber is to provide flexibility to the phloem. The next one is phloem parenchyma. The phloem parenchyma, it stores starch and proteins. So I hope you have understood about xylem and phloem. Now let us proceed to the animal tissues. Whatever we have discussed till now, we were discussing about the plant tissues. Now our next segment is animal tissue. As you can see it in the figure, animal tissues is classified into epithelial tissue and nervous tissue. Epithelial tissue is classified into squamous, cuboidal, columnar, ciliated, glandular. So let us discuss about each in detail. So our first one is epithelial tissue. So what are these epithelial tissue? They are the protective tissues of human body. They cover many organs and cavities that are present inside the body. So what are these epithelial tissues? They are the protective tissue of the human body. This epithelial tissue, they cover many organs. That means that's the outer covering of many organs and the cavities that are present inside the body. So where are the epithelial tissues found in human body? It is found in the lining of the blood vessels. It is found in the lining of the mouth. It is found in the kidney tubules. In fact, our skin also contains epithelial tissue, and it is also found in the lung alveoli. So structure and functions of the epithelial tissue. The main function of the epithelial tissue is to act as a barrier and separate different organ and system from each other. As I have said you in the previous slide that epithelial tissue, it is the covering of many organs. So what it does is separate each and every organ. So that's why it is written it acts as a barrier and separate different organ and systems from each other. Second one, there is no space between the cells of the epithelial tissue. I hope you can understand the second point. The third one, the cells are permeable. That means it can allow essential substances to enter through it. The cells can allow. That's why here the term permeable is written. So this makes it possible for them to exchange material between the different parts of the body and also between the body and the external environment. So which kind of materials are allowed to enter inside the cell? The materials which are essential, which are required by the cell, only those materials will enter inside the cell. So the epithelial tissue remains separated from the tissue beneath them because of a thin membrane over them. So there are numerous layers of epithelial tissue. So each and every layer is separated by a thin membrane. That means in between two layers of epithelial tissue, there is a membrane, there is a thin membrane covering which separates those two tissues. Then after the epithelial tissue, the next comes connective tissue. So connective tissue, what are the structure and function of the connective tissue? They are loosely bound cells present in an intercellular matrix. So they are loosely bound cells present in an intercellular matrix. The matrix can be of different types: dense, rigid, fluid, or jelly-like. Let me explain this with the help of an example. For example, blood. What is the matrix of blood? The matrix of blood is a fluid. That means blood is in fluid form. So that fluid content, I am calling the fluid content as, that fluid content is called as matrix. If you consider the matrix of our bone is a solid substance. So the matrix of our bone is solid. So this matrix can be of different types: dense, rigid, fluid, or jelly-like. So depending upon the functionality of the connective tissue, the nature of the matrix varies in them. So depending upon the function of the connective tissue, as an example, what is the function of our blood? The function of our blood is to transport materials to different parts of our body. So since the function of the blood is to transport materials to different parts of the body, if it would be in solid form, then it could not be transported. So the matrix of our blood is in fluid form. Now what is the function of our bone? The function of our bone is to be a framework of the frame of our body. So if it would be in liquid form, then we will not have any definite shape. So the matrix of our bone is solid. So let us see the examples of the connective tissue. We will start with blood. Now blood is an example of connective tissue. The main function of blood is to transport gases, food, waste material, and hormones in the body. What is the main function of the blood? The main function of the blood is to transport gases, then food, then waste material and hormones in our body. Second one, therefore blood has a fluid matrix present in it, which is called plasma. Now what is the fluid matrix, or what is the fluid content of our blood called, the fluid content of our blood is called plasma. The plasma contains the red blood cells, or you can call it as RBC, the white blood cells or WBC, and blood platelets. The RBC have hemoglobin pigment which carries oxygen to the tissue. Now the RBC has hemoglobin which is responsible for carrying oxygen to various cells of our body. Now white blood cells, the work of the white blood cell fight disease, and platelets are involved in clotting of blood when injured. Now what is the work of the white blood cells? The work of the WBC is to provide protection to our body. So that's why it is written white blood cells fight diseases. And what is the work of the platelet? Whenever you get any injury, the work of the platelet is to do the clotting process. That means to heal you. For example, when you get injured, for example, today you have got injured, and the next day what you will find the place, the part which is injured, in that portion you will find a black color substance or black color thing has got accumulated in that portion. So what is the black color thing? It is an example of clotting. So in that clotting happened because of the presence of platelets, and because of the clotting your skin is recovering. Then the next one, the plasma. The plasma also contains protein and hormones in it, and the plasma, that is the fluid content of blood, it also contains protein and hormones in it. So in short, what are the components of blood? The components of blood are RBC, WBC, platelets. So what is the fluid matrix of blood called? The fluid matrix of blood is called plasma. Let us proceed to our next portion, that is bones. So bone is also an example of connective tissue. Bones form a framework of the body over which muscles are wrapped together. Bones form a framework of the body over which the muscles are wrapped together. I hope you can understand it. The bone tissue is strong and inflexible in nature. We cannot bend our bones. That's why it is written inflexible in nature. Therefore, the bone cells are present in a rigid matrix which is formed from calcium and phosphorus. So the bone cells are present in a rigid matrix, in a solid matrix, and that matrix is composed of, or it is formed of, calcium and phosphorus. So then next comes cartilage. After bone, the next one is cartilage. So cartilage is present over the joint of the bones and provide them with a smooth structure. Now we have various bones in our body. Now each and every bones are attached to one another. What is the thing which is attaching the bones together? It is the cartilage which is attaching the bones together. So for example, in the nose tip and the ear pinna, trachea and larynx. So wherever are these cartilages present? It is present in the nose tip, it is present in the ear pinna, it is present in the trachea, and it is present in the larynx. They contain solid matrix made of protein and sugar. What is the cartilage made up of? The cartilage is made up of protein and sugar. They have a homogeneous matrix. I hope you have understood homogeneous very nicely in chapter 2. So I'm not explaining that homogeneous again. So the next point is it provides support and flexibility to various parts of our body. What is the work of the cartilage? The work of the cartilage is to provide support and flexibility to various parts of our body. So the next thing is ligament and tendon. Tendon and ligaments are different connective tissues. I've written it all together. I prepared the slide all together. I prepared both the content in the same slide, but ligament and tendon are different connective tissues. Let us talk about ligament first, then we'll go to talk about the tendons. What is a ligament? A ligament connects two bones together. So it has an elasticity which facilitates the connection. The cells of ligament has a little matrix. So the ligament connects the two bones together. It has an elasticity. That means the two bones are connected with each other with the help of ligament. It is elastic, which facilitates the connection. The cells of ligament have little matrix. There is very little matrix present in ligament. The next one is tendon. The tendon tissues are responsible for connecting bones and muscles together. What is the work of the tendon? The tendon is responsible for connecting the bones and muscles together. So they have limited flexibility but very great strength. That is, so in short, ligament connect bone to bone and tendons connect bone to muscles. So the next one is areolar tissue. So this tissue acts as a filter in between the spaces present inside the organs of the body. So this tissue acts as a filter in between the spaces present inside the organ. What is the work of it? It helps in repairing other tissues as well. So areolar tissue helps in repairing the other tissue. Where is it found? It is found in the skin and the bone marrow. This areolar tissue is found in the skin and is inside the bone marrow. Then next comes adipose tissue. Now fats are stored in our body in the adipose tissue. What is the work of the adipose tissue? The work of our adipose tissue is to store the fats. They are found below the skin and between the organs of the body. Where are these adipose tissues found? They are found below the skin and in between the organs of the body. And third one, it provides cushioning to the organs. So adipose tissue, it even acts as an insulator because of the storing of the fats. They acts as an insulator. Then after the connective tissue, we are going to discuss about the muscular tissue. What is the muscular tissue made up of? The muscular tissue is made up of muscle fiber, which are long cells. It allows movement in our body. Muscular tissue, it is made up of muscle fibers, and the cells are long, and it allows movement in our body. Because of the presence of this muscular tissue only, we can undergo movement. How muscles can cause movement? They contain special proteins called contracted protein. Now basically our muscular tissue, the cells present in the tissue, what is the work of it? They always contracts and relaxes, and that contraction and relaxation causes movement. And how do these cells how does this cell undergo this contraction and relaxation? They undergo this contraction and relaxation because of the presence of the contractile protein. So in the next line you can just see this protein causes contraction and relaxation of the muscles. Then now the muscular tissue, there are three types. First one is striated, second one is smooth, and the next one is cardiac. So let us discuss about the striated muscle. We can move them according to our own will. They are also called skeletal muscles as they are attached to the bones. So we can move them according to our own will. So that means they are an example of voluntary muscles. So what is the meaning of these voluntary muscles? Or what is the meaning of these voluntary muscles? Now voluntary muscles, these are those kind of muscles which can be moved according to our will. So voluntary muscles causes voluntary movement. Now voluntary movement, these are those kind of movements which can be controlled by our will. That means which we can move by our will. So striated muscles are an example of voluntary muscles. So they are also called skeletal muscles as they are attached to the bones. Since they are attached to the bone, they are also called as skeletal muscle. They are also called striated muscles because of the presence of dark and light bands over them. When you go through your book, you will find the figure of a striated muscle and you will find that they are present. So in that particular figure you will find the presence of dark and light bands. So next one, the cells of voluntary muscles have more than one nucleus. Now these cells, the cells present composing the striated muscle, they have more than one nucleus. So they do not have any branches and they have a long cylindrical structure. Now discussing these branches, when you just see the smooth muscle, you will find that they are in branched form, that is they are connected to one another. In this striated muscle, they are not at all connected to one another. That's why it is written they do not have any branches. And if you just see its structure, they are long and cylindrical in shape. Then before that, let me discuss about the smooth muscle. So smooth muscles, we cannot start or stop the movement of involuntary muscles. Smooth muscles are involuntary muscles. So these involuntary muscles, they causes involuntary actions. That means this movement cannot be controlled by our will. So they are also called unstriated muscles because they do not have any light or dark bands on them. Unlike the previous one, that is the striated muscle, these smooth muscles, they are completely different in structure. They don't have any light or dark bands. So they are called as unstriated muscles also. The cells of the involuntary muscles are long and have pointed ends. You can just see it in the figure. The smooth muscles, they have long and pointed ends. The last one is the cardiac muscles. So they are a special kind of involuntary muscles. The muscles of the heart are called cardiac muscles. The muscles of the heart, they are called as cardiac muscles, and they perform rhythmic contraction and relaxation throughout our life. What does they do? They perform rhythmic contraction and relaxation throughout our life. They are cylindrical in shape and they have branches, and there is a single nucleus. So they are cylindrical in shape, they have branches, and there is a single nucleus. Now the cardiac muscle consists of individual heart muscle cells connected by intercalated discs to work as a single functional organ. Now the cardiac muscle consists of individual heart muscle. That means this cardiac muscle, it comprises our heart. So this cardiac muscle, there are special kind of involuntary muscles. They cause involuntary movement, and this cardiac muscle is only present in our heart. Okay, and because of the presence of these cardiac muscles, our heart performs or shows rhythmic contraction and relaxation throughout our life. Then we're going to proceed to our last topic, that is the nervous tissue. Now before discussing it, you can just see the figure in your book. You can just find it here also. You can just see these are the hairy structures which we call it as the dendrite. The middle portion, the dark portion, it is called as the nucleus. This portion is the cell body. It has a specific, this portion is the axon, and this portion is called as the nerve ending. Here it is written as axon terminal. It is called as nerve ending also. You can just write in nerve ending. So let us discuss about this nervous tissue. So before discussing about this nervous tissue, let us see what the stimuli is. Stimuli is sudden touch. Okay, how do we react to stimuli? This is because of our nervous tissues present in our body. They are capable of transmitting information quickly from the brain to different parts of the body and vice versa. That means whenever we interpret or whenever we have received any kind of information, for example, you are boiling something on a stove, and when it is in boiling position and you are to put that utensil down from that stove, suddenly your hand came in contact with that flame. Now what will happen? You will feel hot. Now that heat is also a factor, and that is a message. So that is an example of your stimuli. So how did you come to know that you are feeling hot? Now you have to remove your hand. It is because of the action of the nervous tissues present in our body. The nervous tissue has done the action. The nervous tissue have transmitted the message. So therefore nervous tissues are found in nerves, brains, and spinal cord. So wherever are the nervous tissues found? The nervous tissues are found in the nerves, they are found in the brain, and they are found in the spinal cord. The nervous tissue is made up of cells called nerve cells or neuron. The nervous tissue is made up of nerve cells or neuron. That means one unit of the nervous tissue is called as neuron. An unit, okay, that is a nerve cell can be called as neuron also. To keep this thing in mind, neuron is nothing other than it is simply the other name of a nerve cell. So these neurons connect together to form the nerves of our body. So these neurons only connect together to form the nerves of our body. So dear student, we have completed the explanation of the tissue chapter. In this tissue chapter, first of all, we have started with the definition of tissue. Then we have gone to the plant tissue. In the plant tissue, we have read about meristematic tissue. Then we have gone to the permanent tissue. In the permanent tissue, you found there is a simple permanent tissue and there is a complex permanent tissue. In simple permanent tissue, you have read about parenchyma, etc. In the complex permanent tissue, you have read about xylem and phloem. Then we have moved on to animal tissues. In animal tissues, we have read about the epithelial tissues. Then we went to the connective tissue. From the connective tissue, we discussed about muscular tissue. Then from the muscular tissue, we have discussed about the nervous tissue. That's all that I have to discuss from this tissue. Thank you.